Hi, it's Chase from Furball Fables, and I'm here with another Cole and Marmalade legal update. This is update 6, and if you haven't seen our other videos, there's a card in the video, and also there'll be a link in the video description. Well, I've had some pretty interesting developments since the last video. I know I was going to post another video just a few days later, but I decided to wait and see what would happen. The first thing I want to mention is that I heard from Digital Pet Media's lawyer, Paul Watson. He contacted me not too long after the last video and wanted to share some documents with me, which we'll be looking at today. And since I was in contact with him via email, I would also send Chris Pool's lawyer, Joe Southern, email as well, and so we'll be sharing some of those updates from them today. Today joining us is a very special guest. Mr. Yogi Otto will be here sitting in on this video and making an occasional comment. So thank you, Mr. Otto, for being here.
Thanks.
Today we're going to talk about the derivative lawsuit. We haven't talked too much about that. We covered it in some of the earlier videos. There are two lawsuits, just to be clear. There is the lawsuit that is currently in federal court, which is turning into a copyright lawsuit, and that is Digital Pet Media versus Chris Pool. So then there is a derivative lawsuit, which is Chris Pool as an individual on behalf of Digital Pet Media versus Steve Waters, Ed Holden, and Holden 2 LLC. What a derivative lawsuit is a lawsuit that's brought on by a shareholder on behalf of the corporation against a third party. And often that third party is an insider of the corporation, such as an executive officer or director, or in this case, it would be the two managing partners of Digital Pet Media, Steve Waters and Ed Holden. For those of you that don't know, Chris is in an equal partnership with both Steve and Ed. They each own 33% of Digital Pet Media. Partnership was formed in 2016. Chris Pool signed a contribution agreement which turned over all the assets of Cole and Marmalade to the new company, Digital Pet Media. Last year, sometime in 2019, the three partners were not getting along. Maybe it started even before that, I'm not sure, but they weren't getting along. And eventually, towards the end of 2019, Chris was terminated from his position as a content creator with the company, and Digital Pet Media filed a lawsuit against him on December 23rd. His wife, Jessica Josephs, was also working for Digital Pet Media, and she also was terminated just a few days before Christmas. The other lawsuit that is currently in federal court and is more of a copyright lawsuit, and that particular lawsuit is dealing more with Chris's other two brands, Catman Chris and Jug and Zigzag. So I want to try to catch you up on what's going on with this derivative case. I'm not going to cover the original complaint because that's just been amended. We'll start with Digital Pet Media. They filed a motion to appoint a special litigation committee. A special litigation committee is appointed often in these types of corporate cases, and they are a special committee of disinterested and independent directors, that are empowered by sometimes the board, or in this case, it'll probably be the judge, to investigate different derivative claims. The judge will most likely appoint somebody with some kind of accounting background, and I would imagine that they are going to need to hire a forensic accountant who will really be able to go over the numbers with a fine-tooth comb. Now, I wanted to skip ahead and mention a few other things. Chris Pool filed a response to the Special Litigation Committee that said that they did not feel it was necessary, that the costs could possibly bankrupt Digital Pet Media, and they weren't sure why Digital Pet Media didn't just file to dismiss the case. They questioned the motives behind appointing the Special Litigation Committee. I heard from the lawyers on both sides of this case, and they both told me that there was a hearing last week, and at that hearing, the motion for the Special Litigation Committee was heard, as well as the new amended complaint. The judge did go ahead and grant both those motions. Now, the latest email I got from Mr. Watson, he did mention also that the hearing happened last week. The judge has the ability to appoint someone neutral to investigate whether there is any merit to these derivative claims. The documents that Mr. Watson sent me were basically Digital's effort to settle this case. The original complaint was about the large management fees that were being paid to Holden 2 by Digital Pet Media. Here you can see an Excel spreadsheet that Mr. Watson sent me, and it does pretty much add up in terms of what the management fee was, where the management fee was going. A lot of it was going to salaries for Chris and Jess, and also some additional content writers that were writing for Marmalade. When you look at this, you can see that yes, that management fee was going to pay salaries, but it does raise some other issues, which we can talk about a little bit later. I have seen 3 settlement letters. Digital is trying to settle this case. I will just show you the most recent offer here. I think that it's getting closer after I look at all 3 of them. However, the only thing that I see that might be missing here is any additional funds that are still coming into Digital. There is no real discussion of that money in the settlement. Mr. Watson did mention that partners from Digital Pet Media are still being threatened by the fans. So I did want to just make note of that and ask that the fans please stop harassing Digital Pet Media. It's really not helping the case, and it is making things worse. So I was really sorry to hear that that was still happening. So I'm going to move on now to the new complaint that was filed last week by Chris Poole, and it's a very interesting complaint. It has changed quite a bit, and it has now added new defendants in the complaint. In addition to Stephen Waters and Ed Holden and Holden 2, which were in the original complaint, it now includes Ahmadi Ramos, Amber King, Alan Pride, and Horselife Media, LLC. Ahmadi and Amber were both writers working for Holden 2. We talked a little bit about that in other videos, and were writing for Marmalade's website. Alan Pride is a CPA who works for Holden 2, and Horselife Media is a newer company that belongs to Steve Waters and Ed Holden. I'm just going to try to kind of tell you the story of the beginning of this complaint. A lot of this information we've been over in other videos, and I don't want to be too repetitious here. It is a different suit, so I feel that I need to cover a little bit of it, but I'll try to go along quickly here. So we know who Chris Poole is of Marmalade and Catman Chris, and he's one of the founding members of Digital Pet Media. We know that Marmalade is a YouTube channel that started in 2012, and in about sometime in 2016, Big Cat Rescue, who Chris used to work for, that's who he originally came to America in 2008 to work for the Big Cat Rescue, in case you didn't know that. Someone from Big Cat Rescue introduced Chris to Ed Holden and Steve Waters, and the 3 of them decided to form a partnership. In this complaint, they mentioned that there are a few things that were done in a way that wasn't the normal way to do business. I think it was a really attractive deal for Chris Poole. Ed Holden has a lot of experience in e-commerce. Steve Waters was to bring connections and investors and professional experience. Poole was to produce all the content, and he would be considered employee number 1 of Digital. So he was guaranteed a bottom line salary that was kind of equivalent to the profits he was already making on his own. Apparently, Walters and Holden didn't quite set up the LLC the way that they promised. This is according to this complaint. They set up Digital as kind of a shell company and made Poole an employee of Holden 2, an entity which was described to Poole as a payroll company that was owned by Walters and Holden. The actual setup happened as followed. On May 12th, Walters presented a digital contribution agreement to Poole and requested his signature, and that agreement, of course, transferred all rights related to Marmalade to Digital, and the agreement stated that Digital was already an existing entity. But apparently Digital Pet Media LLC was not formed yet. Steve Waters filed the articles of incorporation a day later, only after securing Poole's signature on the contribution agreement.
Sounds fishy.
Next, they wanted a second signature for the operating agreement. It granted all management rights solely to Waters and Holden, further declaring that Walters was the only member in his sole discretion who could appoint future managers. Now, what's a little weird about this is that the agreement left Chris Poole with no management rights in the new partnership, and they gave him an operating agreement with the page 4 was missing, and that is where they talked. Page 4 is where this was discussed. I thought he was employee number 1 of Digital, but unbeknownst to him, he really was made an employee of Holden too. Well, as time went on, the company was, of course, doing quite well, was doing better and better each year. Holden 2 actually wasn't a payroll company. It really was a management company that was possibly used to hide certain information from Digital over time. They were being paid a very hefty management fee, which is really where all these problems arise from. Chris was requesting information as to how that management fee was being used and what the breakdown was. The amount of the management fee was arbitrary and was solely decided by the managers of Holden 2. Pride did provide financial statements for Digital members to review from time to time. I'll show you some profit and loss statements. It says here, these statements admitted the use of the management fee taken by Holden 2. So there was no breakdown of this management fee. So it did look suspect. But again, now remember that within that management fee, the salaries were coming out of there. So, but again, I would have wanted to see it broken down. I mean, why do you have a management fee with one big lump sum and not break it down? Chris repeatedly did request records showing use of the management fee, but they were always denied to him. So we start to see that maybe some of the money isn't always adding up.
Really? You think?
Chris started looking around for some new information. I guess Ahmadi was introduced to Jess and Chris sometime in late November 2018. And she was introduced as a freelance content writer, and she had lots of experience similar to what they were writing in Coal and Marmalade. And I think she got along quite nicely with Jessica. Jess approved of her work, and they worked together, and they really were pounding out quite a bit of content on the Coal and Marmalade website. Sometime last summer, Ahmadi let Jess know that she was starting her own cat website. She didn't want Jess to be upset or think that she was doing something behind her back. She wanted to know if it would be okay to put that in her bio on the Coal Marmalade website. Jess went along with it. Now, Chris, on the other hand, was a little suspect about it. If you look at the trademark application for Cattitude Daily, which was filed in November of 2019, it includes an affidavit by Steve Waters. He created Cattitude Daily on July 27th, 2019, which was roughly a week before Ahmadi told Jess about her new website. Waters, acting as manager of a brand new company called Horse Life Media, LLC, had filed for the trademark for Cattitude Daily. Now, Cattitude Daily is set up identically to Coal and Marmalade and really is a direct competitor. If you look, you can see that the look, the feel, the layout, the colors, and the arrangement of the content are all identical in both websites. So in this complaint, they feel that Ahmadi was perhaps not being honest about the website and trying to deceive Poole and Josephs and cover up the fact that Walters and Holden had created a competing company using the funds of Digital. Amber King was also receiving compensation from Digital. So at the direction of Waters and Holden, they took content that was written for and posted on Coal and Marmalade and then reposted the same material on Cattitude Daily. And since Holden 2 owned those works for hire, they could redistribute Digital's content to anywhere they wanted, including Cattitude Daily. So Horse Life Media, LLC is a direct competitor to Digital, and it's set up to mirror Digital Pet Media, LLC in every conceivable way. Same operating procedures, same vendors, same look and feel on its products, same customers, same online media strategy to generate revenue. So what this complaint is saying is that Horse Life has been using the confidential information of Digital's money, Digital's intellectual property, Digital's advertisers, and Digital's customers to create their new company. We also know that Steve Waters was dissatisfied with a company that was just built on 2 cats. I know, Yogi. Okay, yeah, I'll let you take that line. Just hold on. Okay, Mr. Waters declared,
Cats are like baseball players. They get old, and then they have to be replaced.
Waters and Holden actually started to express their dissatisfaction with Jess's work and were constantly harassing her for more and more articles. So now suddenly Steve Waters and Ed Holden were not only dealing with Chris, they were dealing with Jess. I wonder if maybe some of the problems started to happen there, because when I see that they were demanding more and more output for her, and I've seen some other documents that shows that perhaps there wasn't a perfect relationship between all of them. Horse Life also owns and operates 2 other websites, Bark Spot and I Heart Horses, which of course target dog and horse fans. I checked those out. I could see that Amber was writing for Bark Spot. Again, though, they've used the same exact formula as in Coal & Marmalade. I mean, it's the same look, the same type of format. You can see it here. I'll show it on the screen. So they are saying that Ramos and King were paid money from Digital's management fee to write articles for those websites in addition to Cattitude Daily. So Steve and Ed had their own dream company in place, right? They didn't really need Coal & Marmalade.
So they didn't want to put all their eggs in one basket, did they?
They didn't really need Chris anymore, but Chris had a huge following of millions around the world, so, it'd be better to keep Chris. So they decided to deliver Poole a message.
It's our way or the highway.
And the long simmering disagreements between the managers and Poole became immediate demands. 2 managers took a no compromise stance. And Walters threatened that if he didn't get his way, the company would sue Poole and the company would pay for all of Waters' legal fees. After they terminated both Chris and Jess and filed the lawsuit, they demanded that he immediately return his cell phone, his computer, video equipment, and any raw footage to the company. They also tried to seize Joseph's computer, threatening to send the computer to forensic experts to investigate for wrongdoing.
You gotta be kidding me.
In the first few months of 2020, Chris and Jess were using their own savings to fight this lawsuit. They went ahead and created a GoFundMe legal defense page. Now that was in early March. I think it was March 7th. That's when so many of us found out about it. He needed a way to defend himself and try to save Coal & Marmalade. Waters and Holden filed a motion for criminal contempt and wrote cease and desist letters to GoFundMe and threatened Poole that if he didn't take down the GoFundMe, there would be consequences. Poole has nothing left. His entire life and career are toppled by the senseless litigation filed by Waters and Holden, and not to mention the years of deception. The temporary injunction filed in the other case prevents him from doing anything economically productive, as Waters and Holden have threatened to sue him for contempt if he does anything to diminish the value of Digital. Poole was forced to bring that computer equipment to Waters. He said to him, this is ruining my life, right? And Waters looked at him and laughed.
Basti nastards.
Ultimately, Waters didn't really want all his eggs in one basket with 2 cats who would have to be replaced. So they formed a new company, taking Digital's business practices, and used the management fee taken from Digital to fund it. With the merry wagon of sordid affairs, Walters and Holden sued him into oblivion and therefore destroyed Digital Pet Media in an unbridled act of management lunacy. So there are 15 counts in this complaint. I do want to mention there is a request for a jury trial in this case. I don't know that it'll ever get that far. Show you all 15 counts on the screen. I'm not going to go into detail about them. And then that's it on this document. Wow. That is some stunning developments in this case. Just want to thank you all again for watching, and it's been really a pleasure to communicate with you in the comments. Okay, and thank you for joining us, Yogi. We hope that you'll come back again for some additional commentary.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for supporting Furball Fables and watching our videos. That's also been super fun. If you want to get more updates, subscribe to this channel so you know when they come out. Talk to you guys soon.